All right, guys, we are here with the Week 11 live stream. Just three of us today, as we kind of mentioned last week. Going to do a bit of a mock draft this week, the way too soon mock draft. So we decided to keep it a little smaller this time. And so we're here. We're going to jump right into things, as we always do. Kind of follow that similar format till we get to the end of the first thing. As always, we're going to talk about the recap for last week. And Kate, we're going to start with you. Big surprises from last week.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to be here. The biggest surprise, you guys saw that Blind stepped in for me with the newsletter and the trades, and I highly appreciate you for that. But this is the
Here we
reason
go.
why. So we have our little future trade analyzer with us right here. Everybody, please welcome Mr. Azariah James.
So congratulations again to Kate and the family.
Yeah,
He said he's like, I can bring him on the stream. I was like, yes, please do.
absolutely.
So
He's
yeah,
honored to be here too.
6 days
He's
old,
super
man.
content and chilling. Yeah, 6 days old, and he's a champ. Look at him opening his eyes, looking around, wants to say
That's
hi to you
awesome.
guys.
Yeah.
But he is about to go get his little diaper changed. I think it's about that time. And um, yeah,
Yeah,
he's been an absolute blessing to have. It's so cool. What a humbling thing.
yeah, I'm sure, I believe
Um,
it. All right, so the real, I mean, not that that wasn't the real recap, but let's talk fantasy football recap now. We look at what happened last week. The Quad Fathers pick up the win against the Implication with CD Lamb leading the way with 41 points. Then we've got Stefan Diggs helping out Watson's 25th Masusa to go over the Webster Tigers. A very good game and an upset with Justin Stelly over the Spider Pigs, with Justin Fields just absolutely showing he is the guy over the last few weeks in Chicago. Brownout takes the win over Dan Flashes with Christian Kirk having a field day of his own. Diamond Dogs pick up the win over Lake Flynn. Justin Jefferson doing his thing. And again, we talked about it last week, but our game of the week recap, Rutro Raggy barely comes out ahead over the Kung Fu Pandas by 7 points. Patrick Mahomes with 39 points, Travis Kelce with the other 20. So the two of them putting up 60 points again. And so for real this time, Cade, anything that jumps out to you is a big surprise.
yeah, absolutely. Raggy's moving on to 8-3, leaving the Pandas behind, and it was close. Honestly, the Pandas showed up. But just like you said, we got some heavy hitters over here. It looks like we had like over 100 points just from four guys on this guy's roster. And we have Mahomes, Kelsey, Brady finally. Oh, so glad I can actually talk about him.
Right.
And then, Connor in Arizona bringing in another 20 points or so. So it's hard to beat a team that's performing like that. We've hyped up this Mahomes and Kelsey stack, and it's paying off.
Yeah.
Truly for him. I think we all see that, and by this point in time, well respect that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing. Oh yeah.
I was just gonna pull it right to the standings unless you got more. Keep going. If you got more stuff you saw, I'm here for it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just the deli. He is 3-7, but he's on a hot 2-game win streak. I think he's finally serving up some of those sandwiches I was talking about early in the season when I was hopeful for him and his roster. And as he beats the Pigs, it does put a little bit of pressure on the standings. We're already going to see that the standings are more volatile and important moving into the playoffs and fighting for these seeds. We'll kind of get into that a little bit more later with some other teams, but yeah, very proud of him. Great win, coach. And yeah, these standings are going to start making people sweat, and I'm
Yeah.
excited for that.
Well, let's take a look at those while we're talking about it. The Jamarcus Russell division stays exactly the same. There's not too much movement, but things do stay spicy at the same time. So 8-2 for Raggy, really firm lead on their division. If they can pick up a win against Dan Flashes in week 12, so not this coming week, but the week after that, if they pick up the win on Dan Flashes, they clinch the division. The Ryan Leaf division, the only division that's changed again with Brownout and Kung Fu Pandas. Brownout now goes back up to top of that division, whereas the Pandas fall down. Quadfathers stay there at 6-4, and the Achilles Smith division has stayed the same as well. Diamond Dogs comfortably on top at 7-3. Watson's 25th Masseuse picks up a win this week to go to 5-5, and the Spider Pigs fall this week to go to 4-6. So they both, the Masseuses picked up a win, the Spider Pigs lost, but they both stay in second and third place in the division there, and again the implications and when Lake Flynn hanging out at the bottom of their respective divisions as well. But Code, passing it to you. Nothing too crazy, but there are a lot of moving pieces here still at the same time with the season wrapping up here soon.
Yeah, and the big thing is that 6th seed is going to go to whoever has the most points for that the guys remaining, and right now it's Spider Pigs, and with a 4-6 record, you wouldn't think that'd be good enough to make the playoffs, but you still have to watch out for him because, like I've always been saying, the guy's got Josh Allen, he's got McCaffrey, he's got Mike Evans. But that's in the Smith division right now. Yeah, sitting at third, not really looking good for the division race. Leaf division is still obviously a roller coaster ride. We don't even know who's gonna make it out on top. We believe it's gonna be either Brownout or the Pandas, but the Quadfathers could sneak through. It just kind of depends, and we don't know if anybody's gonna make any major moves with the deadline coming up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess we'll find out.
I think when you look at the Russell division, obviously, again, Dan Flash just needs to go on a win streak to take the division away. The Leaf division is so close, but the Quadfathers went 1-2, so the Quadfathers lose the tiebreaker to both Brownout and Kung Fu Pandas, so that puts them in a really difficult spot. If the Spider Pigs win out, if they win their next 4 games, they'll go to 8-6, which means that you would have to lose all 4 of your games, Code and / Diamond Dogs, for him to win the division. So that is an astronomically low chance to happen. And it would have to also go perfectly where Watson's beats you but loses to Spider Pig. So it turns into a mess, thinking that he has a chance at division, but it's definitely a points 4 piece. So we kind of talked about that, and I made a mistake in our last couple videos actually doing it incorrectly. I even talked about how much I liked it, but we'll put the bracket on the screen. This is what the bracket is. So as you mentioned,
bracket, right?
Yeah, Spider Pigs holds on to the 6th seed. So out of the way that it works is each division winner takes a top 3, right? And you see that with Rutger, Raggy, and Brownout. They have the best records. They hold a tiebreaker over the Diamond Dogs as well. So they stay Rutger, Raggy with the record 8-2, Brownout with the win over Diamond Dogs at 7-3 for both. So Diamond Dogs has the 3rd seed. Dan Flashes currently holds the 5th seed. The Pandas with the 4th seed. Spider Pigs then, out of the last 7 teams, has the most points 4. So they slide into that 6th seed. What makes it interesting is the Quadfathers would kick Dan Flashes out of 5th place if they have a better record, but since Dan Flashes beat the Quadfathers, they hold the tiebreaker over them there.
Right.
So really, from my perspective, this is a 2.5 horse race for that 5th seed with Dan Flashes, the Quadfathers, and you can maybe see Watson's 25th Masseuse jumping in to fight for that spot. And then for the 6th seed, it really is Spider Pigs, Quadfathers, Watsons are the 3 that are trying to score the points to have the most points for to get that spot. But Dan Flashes has no chance to, at least from what I remember, Dan Flashes does not have a chance really when you look at the points for. He is not where he needs to be at 1350. That'd be lower than Watson's, lower than Spider Pigs, lower than Quadfathers. Almost Justin's Deli, almost higher, only 50 points behind. So
getting tight.
Yeah, if Dan Flashes does not hold on to that 5 seed and have a better record than the Quadfathers, they will lose that spot and be out and move to the extra pick bracket. But they also have an easier schedule moving forward. They play against 2 teams that are in the toilet bowl bracket versus the Quadfathers, who has to go through their own division. But the Tigers have shown that they're streaking, and the Deli has shown that they're streaking. A win like Flynn's put up point. It's just, there's not much time left, and there's so many different variables to this.
Yeah, I'm just gonna comment real quick because I hate to bring it up because it's kind of like putting salt in the wound, but Cooper Kupp's on IR and Khalil Herbert on IR.
Yep.
So those are 2 starters for Dan that are no longer going to be producing for him. And with the way the Deli have been surging, I mean, we haven't seen like movement. We've seen like small movements, but we haven't seen like any major movements in the actual bracket. But if the Deli continue this streak and because the thing is that they're 3-7 right now.
Right.
It's on the screen. It was on the screen here, but I just
It's 3-7.
Yep.
They're 3-7, and the Pigs are 4-6. Like that's like a 1-win difference. So yeah, we could definitely see some switching around here since that 6th seed gets the 6th seed is for points 4.
Yeah.
So.
And keep in mind too, Dan Flash, as we had him on a few weeks ago, he's talked about his picks. He currently has a 2023 third pick, a 2024 second, a 2024 third, and a 2024 fourth. So he doesn't have unless you're crazy. Look, I understand a pick in 2025 a first round holds value, but who's going to sell a player for a 2025 first round pick in a contract league? Maybe in Dynasty
the
if you're
year
on the
doesn't
full
exist
rebuild.
yet. Yeah.
Right. So Dan doesn't have
so
too much in the arsenal to really try to trade for something, and so does he now have to move Jonathan Taylor at a lower or a higher cost than he wanted to?
He'd
Or a lower cost
he'd
than he
been
wanted
trying
to?
to shop him.
Yeah, like, do you have to take a downgrade in running back and get a receiver back? He doesn't have another
that would
quarterback
suck,
to send away. He's got Rodgers and Wilson. He has no other starting quarterback on his team. He's got Montgomery, who now absorbs all those carries, so there's that piece of it, but there's no other running back on that roster anymore. His wide receiver core is great, but again, Cup going down sucks. He is teetering on the edge, I feel like. So yeah, should be really interesting to see how that shapes up. Injuries suck, and obviously we hope Herbert and Cup are okay, but it's really going to put Dan in a bind, and maybe we'll see some activity. Shoney's a heavy trader, yeah.
Adds a bit of pressure.
For sure. Let's go ahead and take a look. We're going to do next week before we move on to the mock draft. We got our featured matchup, Diamond Dogs against the Quad Fathers. I just think if Diamond Dogs picks up the win here, it's practically a lock on the division. If Quad Fathers picks up the win here, it keeps them in the race for their division. But also, really, they just need to put points on the board. They need to get the Quad Fathers can get in by points. The Quad Fathers can get in by the 5th seed or the 1st seed. So they need a win here and a lot of points scored to make it happen. We've got Win Like Flynn against the Implications. We'll see how that battle goes by the 2 bottom teams in the standings. Spider Pigs looks to rebound against the Webster Tigers. Brown out against Rutro Raggy. Seeds number 1 and 2 going head to head. Watson's 25th Masseuse against Justin's Deli. So Justin's Deli looking to play spoiler yet again against another team in the Achilles Smith division, and Dan flashes against Kung Fu Pandas. 2 teams that are in 2nd place in the division looking to make their way back to 1st place, go head to head. Every single match has a story. Every single match has a lot of moving pieces in it as well. But let's talk featured matchup. No bias here, Codes. It's going to be tough, I know. But who do we think takes this one? We'll start with you, Cade.
Yeah, honestly, I just got to say we have to put some respect on the dog's name. I think Codes has done a great job personally, and as far as the matchup goes, we see in several of the weeks throughout the season, the Dogs are not afraid to flex and drop more points than anyone else in the league. And so if that happens again this week, and so I'd say it's likely based off how many times it's happened. Quad Fathers, I don't think stands a chance, if all these guys are hitting. But that's not to take away from what the Quad Fathers are doing. Like I said, I'm a big Burrow fan. But I definitely showed them a little bit of love in those reviews a couple weeks ago as well, and I think that they are a threat, a force to be reckoned with. So I'd say it's going to be close, but I do look forward to watching. And at the end of it, I do have the Dogs.
Code, unbiased opinion, probably yourself.
An
biased opinion.
I can't sit here and hate on my team. I built it to win. I didn't come in wanting to start a rebuild.
Right.
So as long as the guys just do their jobs, that's kind of what I need from them. So 2 votes for the Dogs, none for the Quad Fathers. I'll play devil's advocate. I'll go for Quad Fathers. I do think the Dogs probably pick up the win here, but I think the Quad Fathers have more boom potential, but they need to boom. I think Dameon Pierce, Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb, Joe Burrow, Tyler Boyd, if they boom, they will boom like crazy. You can obviously say the same thing for Hurts and Jefferson and Henry, but I think that we've seen crazy weeks from the Burrow and Boyd stack. We've seen Dameon Pierce take over games and ran over the Eagles really well. Devontae Adams is able to do that as well. We've seen that plenty of times in Green Bay. They seem like they're finally getting it together, kind of, in Oakland. So part of me thinks that the Quad Fathers could boom. Or you're right. Excuse me. So part of me feels like the Quad Fathers could boom more than the Dogs, but I think the Dogs have a higher floor for sure. Either way, it should be a really interesting matchup, and really determines, I think, for the Dogs, can you be comfortable? And determines for the Quad Fathers how uncomfortable will you be moving, because this is the last week before you go back into your division, and the Quad Fathers need to get a win before going and playing Brownout, Kung Fu Pandas, and Win Like Flynn again. I was I'm not going to say it's an absolute must-win for the Quad Fathers, but it will sure help if
Awfully
they
close.
pull it off.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, so we are going to move to the mock draft section here. So, again, as I hinted last week, I need something to look forward to with my season not having gone anywhere nearly as good as I wanted to be. So I think we're going to do this in 3 segments. The first segment is now in November, which, again, I know it's way too soon, but here we are. The second time we'll do this will probably be towards the end of the year once the playoffs are done. Like one of the last things we kind of do before everything shuts down, when nothing's really happening, and then maybe again a week, 2 weeks before the rookie draft actually happens. So we'll do 3 different ones, and we'll start with this one, which is way too early.
Way too soon mock draft.
The way too soon mock draft. I want to explain to you guys how we came up with the order here, and I forgot to bake something for that, so we're going to kind of wing this on the fly. It's going to totally look normal. So this is...
Well, honestly, what you could do is you could go back to the playoff bracket, because didn't we use this bracket?
We absolutely did, but we're gonna...
So...
I'm totally cheating. I can make it work. Here we are. We're making it. We're gonna make it work. It's not gonna work. We're gonna push the button and see how this looks. Okay, it kind of works. Let's make this a little smaller. Let's make it a little bigger. Don't look at all the things. I totally don't have anything up as it should be. So this is the projected draft order. Oh, this isn't even the one that I wanted to have up there. It's okay. We're going to roll with it. So this is the projected draft order from what we kind of came up with. Justin's Deli at number 1 overall, followed by Win Like Flynn at number 2, Webster Tigers at number 3, and the Implications at number 4. Again, the bottom 4 teams. Those are the bottom 4 teams. We took the playoff bracket that we just showed on the screen and said, what do we think will happen? So we said in these bottom 4 teams, if they stay here, who wins that bracket? And we think it's Justin's Deli, and we think that Win Like Flynn comes in 2nd, Webster Tigers in 3rd, and then the Implications in 4th, which will determine that order. We then looked and said, okay, currently projected we have the Quad Fathers and Watson's 25th masseuse in the extra pick bracket. So we think that Watson's would lose that pick bracket to the Quad Fathers, and that would put Quad Fathers in the 5th place and Watson's in the 6th place. We then said Spider Pigs in the 7th place, Dan Flash is in 8th place. They'd be the first 2 teams eliminated from the playoffs, from our opinion. Then we said the Dogs and Brownout would go 9 and 10, before Raggy and the Pandas would go 11 and 12. So I think I can actually just do this. Oh, this is so embarrassing. So yeah, that's what it was. So first in the toilet bowl for Justin's Deli, second in the toilet bowl for Win Like Flynn. Webster Tigers and the Implications are 3rd and 4th. We think Quad Fathers would come in 5th, winning in the extra pick series against Watson's. We think that Dan Flashes and Spider Pigs would both have the first round exit, with Dan Flashes holding a higher pick because they are a higher record. We think Diamond Dogs would come in 4th place against Brownout. I don't know if we talked about that, Code, but that was my personal pick. We quite literally, by the way, and Code can confirm this, we flipped a coin for who would win Brownout versus Kung Fu Pandas. Because we were so unsure of what that would look like, and we settled on the coin flip being Kung Fu Pandas 1. We think Raggy comes in 2nd, and then we think that the Pandas come in 1st. So that's what the projected pick order actually looks like. And then when you look at how the trades shape up, it would be this order: Justin's Deli first, Win Like Flynn, Webster Tigers, Implications, Diamond Dogs, Implications, Justin's Deli, Spider Pigs, Brownout, Justin's Deli, and Kung Fu Pandas. So that's where this all comes from. So hopefully you guys are on board with that. And sorry for the scurrying here at the last second or two, but we're going to jump right into these picks one by one. And so from what we think is going to happen, our first overall pick, Bijan Robinson going to Justin's Deli. Go ahead and let's talk about that, Code. Why do we think Bijan goes to Justin's Deli?
So in like most of the Superflex mock drafts and just draft research that I've conducted, Bijan is the clear 101 because he's probably the best running back prospect going out of college in a long time, since like Saquon, and he's just explosive. Like, watch the tape.
Plain and simple.
Yeah, it's kind of it.
Code, why do you think Bijan goes to Justin? Or Cade, why do you think Justin's, again, the one letter thing, man. Bijan and Justin's Deli was our pick. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think what we've seen with the Deli, and that's why his record is the way it is that he doesn't have a lot of strength and depth at that running back position, and so just being able to pick him up, be able to put that at ease, feel comfortable there, I think that'd be a very smart pick. I think it'd make a lot of sense and really open things up for this next year. Like I said earlier, big fan of the Deli, so I really hope he does something special here, and I think this could be that too. And
again, we'll have free agents as half the players, if not more, drop off each team. But currently on the roster are Ken Walker, who obviously stud, top 5 dynasty running back probably. Cam Akers is his number 2 running back, and then Myles Gaskin is the number 3, and there is no number 4. So not even like a guy who's a rookie on the taxi who's the number 4. Like, that is it. So running back, definitely a need for Justin Deli, hence the Bijan Robinson pick. All right, we go to Win Like Flynn for our 102. Code, let's talk through that. We're going to go with Bryce Young, quarterback, going to win like Flynn?
You could argue Stroud here. Bryce Young and Stroud are like interchangeable, like 1 and 2 probably, for best quarterback in the class. But a big note as to why I think Bryce would go ahead of Stroud is just because of how well Alabama's done with developing quarterback talent. We have Tua Tagovailoa with the Dolphins, Jalen Hurts with the Eagles, and Mac Jones with the Patriots. And not saying that they all run the NFL, but Tua and Hurts are on two of the best teams. So it'd be kind of disingenuous to sit here and be like an Alabama quarterback's not going to be a good first round pick. So um, we're going to have Win Like Flynn taking Bryce.
Yeah, and we could also see where Bryce Young ends up versus Stroud, who is a better situation. But with the knowledge we have now, Bryce Young, what do you think about that, Kate? Do you think that's the right pick there?
Yeah, I do. Especially, if we look at what he has, we got Dak Prescott and a couple of players who are kind of unproven. They're still yet to really get established. We have Pickett, Willis, even Darnold, and so getting someone fresh in there, someone who has a lot of potential, and you can just kind of like start clean with, I think would be a great idea for him. So I definitely see that going off.
And if I'm not mistaken, I'm checking right now, so don't mind me as I look at the phone. Matt Stafford used to be on Win Like Flynn before he was one of the players that was moved in a trade at some point in time. And Stafford's moved around a whole bunch of times before ending up in the implications now.
Yeah.
But yes, so he was traded to Rutro Raggy from Flynn earlier on in the season. So Flynn had him for $90 in the draft before saying, "Hey, this guy's not it," and moving on. So
Yeah.
totally makes sense.
He made up his mind. I mean, I was talking to him in DMs at one point. I asked about Dak Prescott's price, and he said he'd prefer to keep him because he wants to build around Dak. So maybe that's changed now, but
yeah, we'll have to see.
We'll see.
Moving on to pick number 3, Jahmyr Gibbs going to the Webster Tigers, the running back from Alabama, back-to-back Alabama players, right? Jahmyr Gibbs is from Alabama, right? And I'm like,
yes, I believe
Yeah.
so. He
Yes.
transferred from Georgia Tech.
Yep. So Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama. So 2 Alabama players going back-to-back. And Code, when we look at the roster there's not really another running back for the Webster Tigers, which is, I think, what led us to saying that Jahmyr Gibbs goes here.
Yeah, I mean the Tigers. I think they have a kind of a clean slate as to what they want to do. If they wanted to go with C.J. Stroud here to solidify their quarterback position a bit more, I would not put it past them to do something like that. Even as a wide receiver here, maybe, but I think Jahmyr Gibbs is probably the best on the board at this point, and he just really needs a hammer running back at this point to pair with Javonte when he comes back from injury.
And I think Javonte Gibbs, 2 workhorse running backs again. Gibbs has shown he could be 3 downs. Javonte has shown he could be 3 downs. That's Point City, right?
Right.
And
It
what's
all
up,
depends on the situation, but yeah.
Cade? What do you have here?
Yeah, well, and there sure is a lot coming out of Bama, man. I note that, Jahmyr Gibbs has been called a mini Alvin Kamara. With a comparison like that, it's hard to overlook him or not, bring some serious contemplation to that. There could be a lot of reliability, definitely workhorse style load where you're going to have a high floor and he's going to be reliable. So I think it would make a lot of sense, to pick him up. Plus, with a name like Jahmyr, you can kind of do whatever you want. I'm already in that guy's corner. I'll just go ahead and say it, and so yeah, I think that would definitely be wise there.
Yeah, and this was, I felt like Bijan was a home run, and we said, yeah, it's going to be Bijan going to 101, Bryce Young going to 102. But to Code's point, we could have gone, I think, 3 different ways here before we settled on Gibbs.
Yes,
being the guy for
they're
the
all kind of
Tigers.
interchangeable there.
Moving on to pick number 4, the first of the implications picks, we went with quarterback C.J. Stroud from Ohio State. Code, let's talk through that one.
I think this makes a lot of sense for the implications roster. You could argue that they really need wide receiver, but again, looking back at the actual order, the implications have 3 picks in the first round, so a little bit of foreshadowing there. But yeah, they have Stafford, Trey Lance, and Baker Mayfield. One's hurt, one's benched, and then one hasn't played in like 2 or 3 years because he's either been stuck on the bench or he tore his did he tear his ACL? Is that the injury he had?
No, he broke his ankle this year.
He broke his ankle. Okay. I mean, regardless, hasn't played a whole lot. So yeah, that quarterback room is just kind of tough. Grabbing Stroud here, hopefully he goes to a good situation. It'd be he's an amazing football player.
And points are what we're here for, right, Cade? That was a point that you wanted to make about why CJ Stroud.
Yeah, 100%. This league, We got pass touchdowns, bringing in 6 points, and so when you look at this guy, he is one of the best pocket passers that we've seen. Where he's coming out of Ohio.
Ohio
Um,
State. Yep.
yep. Especially coming out of Ohio State, and so there's some serious value there. We're looking for reliability. That's what we want. We want points. And so if we really feel like he's going to bring some points in here, it'd be really hard to pass him up, especially this early.
And just for the record, too, so as to not tip anything, the way that we did this as well, since we're right in the middle of an implications pick for obviously my team, and then Diamond Dogs are next for Code. What we did is when it was our turn on the clock, we didn't say who we'd take, and the other player basically picked for them, just because I don't want to tell my secrets to Code. He'll steal all my players and stuff. So
Yeah.
so
Even though this is way too soon mock draft.
even though this is way too soon, yeah. For all we know,
100% accuracy, guys.
yeah.
100%.
Every one that we get right, every single pick,
telling.
any pick we get right, I heard we're taking shots on the live stream. So
On the next stream? Okay.
yeah, for anyone
I'm
that's
down.
perfectly right player, right team, in the right place. Well, it doesn't have to be in the right place. I'll just take shots anyway. All right, going on the pick.
People might people might just pick the guys then to get us to take
Just to
shots.
see me make a bad
Just to
pick
see
and
us
then
get
halfway through the draft. Pick number 5, going to the Diamond Dogs. We went with Will Levis. Code, I know these are, again, the points that we did together, but
Yeah.
we're not really sure about what's going on with your team, from my perspective, with quarterback. And that's why we went with Levis here.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not even going to beat around the bush. The Dogs, my team, there's some uncertainty at quarterback past Hurts. I don't really know what I'm doing yet with Wentz. Davis Mills exists, but if Stroud gets drafted to the Texans, which is I think what he's been mocked to before, and they give Stroud the go-ahead out the gate, who knows what happens with Mills. So I think Levis makes sense here just because he'll have good capital and he's got the tools. I don't think he's a great quarterback necessarily, but then again, that Kentucky team isn't exactly super talented either. It's not like he's playing on an undefeated college squad. So hopefully his tools can carry him in the NFL.
And then when we look at some of the other reasons behind it, right, the implications pick right after again. And so that was a point that you made, Cade, why we go with Levis here.
Yeah, we're always watching what everyone else has going on. We're not always trying to deprive people, but we want to build ourselves up and shut off opportunities for weakness, shut off opportunities for other teams to take advantage. And so, taking that pick from the implications would be huge. And then, just kind of like, building off that, not to dig the knife in any deeper, but, if there is uncertainty at the quarterback position, bro, you might have to cut ties with somebody. So, being able to fill
Yeah,
that
we'll see
gap,
for
fill
sure.
that need immediately is going to be important if that does happen.
And again, we projected the Diamond Dogs to get through the first round of playoffs, make it to the top 8, and having this top 5 pick could be really nice to continue to add, especially with that question mark there. We move to number 6 and 7, who we combined both implications picks, and the implications take two wide receivers here with Jordan Addison and Jackson Smith and Jigba. And let's talk about it. Why, Code?
I think it's hard to argue against it when you look at their wide receiver room, just because of how desperate it is. But these are arguably the top 2 wide receivers in the class. I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigma, like back in like the summer, I think people were like almost creaming over how good this guy was as like a sophomore. I think he's a junior now, and obviously with when you have CJ Stroud at quarterback, that's great. But he's very shifty, and just massive deep threat. So, and then Addison is standout too. Played with Pickett at Pittsburgh before transferring to USC. People have said he's got a little bit of Jordan or Justin Jefferson to him. So, yeah, I mean, you can't argue with the top 2 wide receivers of the class going at 106, 107.
And I think it follows the same trend, not to, again, tip hands, but follows the same trend that my team has taken in the past, right, with the startup draft, Cade?
Yep, absolutely. We want young, youthful wide receivers. We're talking longevity here. I've noticed that the implications, we're in this rebuilding phase. So I can obviously see the coach is planning for the future. He's not just thinking like, all right, let's fill a spot for a year. We're really thinking about how this can develop over the course of time. And I think it would fit right in with some of these wide receivers I see. I believe it's London, Burks, Olave, Olave. I'm gonna butcher
Olave,
his
yeah,
name.
Olave drafted before
and-
trading
and-
away.
But yeah.
Yep, and Higgins as well. So just kind of like fitting that pattern of drafting youthful people there with value, maybe even to be able to trade away down the future, if we're not getting that value that we want. But yeah, definitely fitting the pattern.
Mhm.
Move on to pick number 8 here. We are back to Justin Stelly with the number 1 pick and is now down here to number 8. And we went with Zach Evans, a running back, a second running back for Justin Stelly. And we already kind of hinted at it earlier with not having much depth there, Code. But why did we go with a second running back for them?
I think that the Delhi are kind of set at receiver. They don't really need to take a receiver. They could very well do so if they have this pick when it comes to the draft. But really, when they grab Evans here, they create this three-headed monster with Bijan, Kenneth Walker, and Evans. And you could argue that's the best running back room in the league for the next 3 years just because of the dynasty implications that has.
Yeah, that would put Evans on a more than, if you would expect people to sign to a 5-year deal, right, in the first round. So it puts Evan on a 5-year deal, Bijan on a 5-year deal, and Kenneth Walker on a 4-year deal. You don't have to ever worry about running back again, right? Like that would be a dream
unless
scenario,
catastrophic injury or something.
Of course, right.
Yeah.
But when you look on paper out of the draft, that's a great tandem there too. And he's been just running over people in college too, Kate, his entire career.
Yeah, I think he's averaging like 6 yards per carry right now, which is honestly kind of a heck of a stat. It's just showing reliability and, coming out of college into the league, showing that you're willing to be a workhorse, that you're willing to perform, and that you can, keep up with these guys. That's going to be huge, and it makes him super valuable for this pick here. Just adding more strength for the Delhi. We want these sandwiches. We want to see these sandwiches, all right? So just consider the options that we're throwing out here.
We move on to the Spider Pigs, who go with Sean Tucker, who looks way older than he is. Another running back, and the tie matches the logo. I think that's why we went with this one, right? But no.
Yeah.
But so, what do we see with Sean Tucker and wanting him to go to the Spider Pigs, Code?
We don't really hear a lot about football players coming out of Syracuse, but Tucker is like an exception because he's just an absolute beast, true workhorse. And the Pigs really could use a good RB2 to complement McCaffrey because, like, Miles Sanders is good, but he's honestly almost more boom or bust at running back. So you'd almost rather have that guy in the flex spot. So if they were to draft the running back to complement McCaffrey and have Sanders at the flex, that might be a better. Not telling you how to coach, man, but that's just what we would do if you were to take this guy here.
Yeah, I think that when you look at Miles Sanders as the running back too, it's like, I don't know about that. But when you look at him as your first flex player, like that's a good flex play, and Sean Tucker might allow that to happen. And McCaffrey and Allen are his like star quarterback, star running back, but then there's no depth there, whereas there's a lot of depth at receiver. We felt like when we looked at that team, so kind of getting that extra oomph is really, really needed, and you can't move a quarterback to a flex spot here.
Well, and like I was gonna say before we go to Cade about like running backs, like nobody really loves to like buy running backs when they're like super old. So the best time to restock on good running backs would be in the draft when they're fresh.
Yep.
And they're young and they have young legs.
Yeah, no tread on their tires. And speaking of tread on their tires, I mean, you look at the running back room that exists right now for Spider Pigs. There's a whole bunch of people in there who have some name value, but nobody knows what they're doing there, right?
Yeah, and they're all kind of like, they're filling a spot, and sometimes you might get some value out of them. You might get some points out of them, but some of them are, aged or just not really performing. So we really want to work to solidify this running back room, and I think maybe even using the name value of some of these guys like Singletary or Chuba Hubbard or Mostert and Hines, using that name value, offloading them, freeing up some space, maybe grabbing a couple wise trades. You're going to need to fill those gaps. And I think, Sean Tucker's a great pick for that. Gives him the ability to do that and then free those guys up to build value in other places.
I totally could see the Spider Pigs trading, again, if it all shakes out like this, pick 109 plus Singletary and Hines to move up to
Yes.
105, 106, 104, somewhere in that area to get a better player. I could totally see them trying to make a move like that to really try to
Yeah,
secure.
kind of just have to like leverage it, and really consider what we're gonna do instead of just picking and thinking like straight up one for one. Try to get as much value out of these people as you can before they get to a point on your roster where they're kind of worthless.
Right. Moving on to 110. This is where it got a little bit weird because it's for brownout, and that roster is so deep overall. So with Keishawn I always forget. Boutte.
Yeah, Keishawn Boutte.
I am a child. Keishawn Boutte. What do we go with? What made this pairing the one that made sense for us, Code?
Keishawn's probably the best player available. Definitely the best receiver available, and probably the best player available at this point in the draft, unless you went quarterback. And the thing is, he just has that LSU tag. And you come from that line of like Odell, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. All these great receivers come out of LSU. So why not take a shot here?
And we already kind of hinted at it a second ago too, Cade, but the roster for brownout is so deep, there's no immediate need, right? So
yeah, just
PPA.
Going into the ability to do what he wants, not having the pressure, not having the stress. Massive shout out, Coach K Mix. From the beginning, I've always been a fan of what I see happening. Blown away by the trades, early in, seeing what you're doing with the roster. So I love it. Now you have the ability to do what you want, and you're not even risking anything here. You can just kind of grab a high value person whenever you want, and I think that'd be a great pick with Kayshawn.
So now we move to the Webster Tigers, who take their second pick in the first round here. And we went with Quentin Johnson from, oh my God, I forget the name. Is it TCU?
TCU, yeah.
Comes from TCU. And we felt like that was the right pick to kind of get some extra firepower at wide receiver there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just need, the Tigers just need help as far as like actual talent on the roster. They've been able to get some scrappy wins, but when you look at their roster just as a whole, you're like, wow, they really don't have too much talent. So we had them getting Jahmyr Gibbs earlier, and if they get Quentin Johnston here from TCU, the dude's an absolute animal and should be a solid wide receiver 2 or 3 at least.
And we know that it was mentioned when that trade happened to Christian Watson that Morgan HL is a believer in Christian Watson. And Christian Watson commanded all those targets that we saw. Jamar Chase commands all the targets. Yeah, and Jamar Chase, obviously, we know commands targets. Quentin Johnson, similar in that commanding targets, right, Cade?
Yeah, forceful. We want someone who's going to be present, who's going to be reliable. The Tigers are going to want a performer and not just someone that we can throw into a spot. If it is a wide receiver 3, that's one thing, but I'd like to see him break into a wide receiver 2 spot here, and really kind of pull his weight, be valuable, and be able to really perform for Webster's.
We move to pick number 12, which is going to go back to Brown out here, as he stole that pick from Kung Fu Pandas. We go with Hendon Hooker, who is the quarterback, and we went with quarterback. Yeah, out of Tennessee, and we went with quarterback here, mostly just because it kind of fits K Miggs' style, right, Code?
Yeah, quarterback's the most valuable position in Superflex. You can never have too many quarterbacks, so why not take a shot on Hendon Hooker, who's, very mature, like a fifth-year senior. I think he's like 25 years old, out of Tennessee, and he's been looking good. He wasn't even I don't think he was even like considered to go in like first round of Superflex drafts, like when this at the start of the season, but he's played his way into it. So that's what you want to see.
And that would be some depth there for him as well. Cade, what were your thoughts here?
Yeah, just kind of building off last time, K Miggs really has the ability, Brownout, to do what he wants without really risking much. Because he's built such value, such depth, he can kind of make whatever offers he wants. He can kind of go out for anyone he wants, which is great. Definitely earned that. There was a lot of moves, a lot of value built throughout the season for him. So, just making moves with no risk. Just high reward possibility. I think this would kind of fit right into that MO.
And then we've got pick 13, so we didn't hint at this earlier because it didn't fit all nice and pretty on the scene, but pick number 13, we projected the Quadfathers to win that extra pick bracket to get 1.13, and so to finish us off here, the Quadfathers pick 1.13, and we went with Michael Mayer, and Code, this is one you pushed for in particular, but why did we send our first tight end off the board to the Quadfathers here at pick 1.13?
might be a little early to think tight end, but technically it's a second round pick, and we know how much the Quad Fathers loves his tight ends. And when you look at that roster, I mean, he's got like 4 of them, but none of them are really like solid producers. So why not take a shot here at arguably one of the best in the class?
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, Kate, he's one of the best prospects in a while for tight end, and I think that there are no other real tight ends that kind of come off the board after him, almost maybe, unless you're hoarding those 4th-round picks like the Tigers are. I can't really see another tight end going anytime soon here, so maybe you just get the best one and see what happens, or what do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah. I think we just move fast on that. He's not just the best tight end prospect. I'd say it's by a decent bit. And so just kind of solidifying that, taking, I mean, let's just look what Kelsey's done this year, or Andrews. When you really have a solid tight end who could perform, they're more than a swing vote for your team. They really do dictate how those games are going to go. So I think capitalizing on something like this would be a smart move. Not I would be surprised if we made that move and were disappointed.
All right, so that does it for us for the mock draft. Appreciate you guys going through that. Lots of homework went into this one, in case you guys couldn't tell, and I would be
It was
happy if
fun
one
for
of those
sure.
was. I'd be happy if one was right. We'll see if how it goes, but
Yeah.
that does do it for us this week. A little bit longer than normal, sitting a little bit over the 40-minute mark. So hopefully you guys had a nice long cup of coffee or a nice long drive to work, and we can keep you somewhat sane, or maybe a little more insane with how deep we dive into our fantasy football enthusiasm. So next week
I'm glad you guys enjoy this stuff.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
for sure. Next week we are back to normal. We're going to be in a buy or sell segment. We're going to have somebody on the show with us. I know that we talked to someone and said they were on the docket a month and a half ago, and then we decided to do this. So we'll have to check and make sure they're still good to go. But if you're interested in jumping on with us, let us know. And again, we are still doing that live stream in 2 weeks here for the trade deadline on the 30th. So be around and be ready for that. And continue to update your trade blocks. I appreciate a lot of you guys have been going through and doing it. I finally did it after telling everybody to do it for a week. I finally did it myself last night. But keep an eye on that. Make sure those are up to date, realistic, whether it's picks or players, so we can talk about those soon. And that's all I've got. Code, any final thoughts on your end?
Update your trade blocks.
Cade? Update your
yeah,
trade blocks
just,
as well.
Oh yeah, update those trade
We're just
blocks.
going to hammer it. Buy that. Cut it. Oh, God,
Seriously,
sorry.
beat that horse. But yeah, you guys are great. Like everyone said, we hope you enjoy this. There was some homework. Massive shout out to Blind and Codes, and just being reliable, always having great content, and honor.
Good stuff. All right, guys, we will see you next week. I think that's all I got. And if I forget, which I did totally forget something, we'll talk about it in the Discord or the chat. We'll talk to you soon.